that we are now moving into an age, an era, where it's becoming increasingly important to have the ability to merge consciousness with our subconscious mind. And that's another way to look at the feminine aspect. If you're a man, you have a conscious mind. It's what you know that you are. And your subconscious, the reason why it's going to be an anima or an animus relationship, just like Carl Jung says, is if you think about it, if you're perceiving yourself as a man, then your opposite shadow is going to be a female, right? It's like your absorption versus your reflection. It's still you. It's not separate from you. But you'll encounter that person. And so as you start to encounter that person, and for a man to encounter a woman or a woman to encounter a man in this type of union, then they will start enter into tantric practices. And the tantric practices are inclusive of breath work. The breath work is intended to bring your brain into this hall of Brahman, or the wedding hall. That's also referred to as the hypothalamus, the thalamus, right? It's this fleshy part of the center of the brain that's right in the center of the corpus callosum, which connects both sides of the brain. So now you're creating this canopy of electricity so that now all the things that you cannot perceive with your five senses, you could perceive through that hall of Brahman. It's an expanded awareness, and this is, how you can achieve a higher state of awareness. And then eventually you'll get a hole in the top of your head, right? Which sounds funny, but it's called a Brahman Andra. After you've achieved this, the energy seeks to go out of your head. And so you've got a place in your brain where the skull fuses together as a child. But there's still a lot of tissue there, and eventually it pops. And for me, it did. It popped. It was very loud. It happened in the middle of the night, and I knew I was going to get this big bloody nose. And I immediately got up and ran to the bathroom and got tissue paper because I had a huge bloody nose.
Wow.
And then the next day, but the next day or two after, I was like feeling my head, and I'm like, what the heck? There's like a hole in the top of my head. And it's soft.
But this is what you see in all of certainly the ancient Indian iconography, oftentimes in the Buddhist iconography. It's like we have the spine, we have those snakes coming up, like you said, those Kundalini snakes, and then you have this lotus flower blooming on the top of the head, opening on the top of the head. And this is, again, not I guess, yes, maybe the flower is a metaphor for the actual opening that is happening on the skull, because the energy gets so high that it wants to be released.
By the way, that's not your best pickup line, if that's what your intent is, right? It's like, hey, baby, let's go put a hole in the top of your head.
Maybe you're like a kink bar or something. Maybe someone's into that.
Yeah. It's like, wait, you don't have a hole in the top of your head? Come back to my place.
But I'm curious to know, because this is at the core of so much of the work that I'm doing at Ziva, and certainly with Sacred Secret, is to help people to turn up the dial on their own divinity. And I talk about this because, when you do that breath, and then you secrete that melatonin, which is the precursor to DMT, right? You're making more of this God particle inside of your brain, quite literally becoming more divine, more powerful, more creative. I'm curious to know, what do you think would happen if more people were able to do this, to raise up their feminine, to bring their masculine and feminine in balance, to have this union inside of themselves? If we were able to do that in the inside, what do you think would be the ripple effect on Earth?
Look, I don't believe that the world's a difficult place. I've said this many times. I'll keep saying it. I don't think it's a difficult place because people hate each other as much as it's a difficult place because people hate themselves. I think what would shift if everybody and more people did this, and they did it also while embracing the aspects of themselves that they formerly did not like. I heard something the other day, which was from Alissa Nobriga, which you know.
Yeah.
And she said something that it had a profound impact on me, and I've been thinking about it since we met for a podcast. And she said, if you want to experience, the feeling of feeling loved, then embrace the feeling of not feeling loved. And taking the opposite aspect and the thing that you are fearing the most, embrace it rather than fearing it. What we resist is what will persist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the more human beings that enter into this kind of divine union, it's really just a metaphor for them finding the love within themselves. So this is why, sometimes I get a little bit testy, I guess, when I hear that, some people will be like, oh, no, I'm never going to have, and maybe it's because of my own bad experience with, oh, I don't have premarital sex, so I end up in South Korea, right? It's like, this is what happens. But
I think a
I
lot of
would
people
say
aren't having
this, that,
postmarital sex either.
yeah, I would say this, that you want to find that special partner and be able to share this expression because it's not separate from you. That special partner is a reflection of you. And the moment that you're actually no longer in resistance to whatever will come is the moment that that wisdom keeper aspect of you will appear.
Can you say that
You know,
again? I don't
if
understand.
I'll put it in another sense, right? So if you need to get a loan from a bank, is that a good time to get a loan from a bank?
No.
If you walk in the bank and say, I need a loan, I'm starting a new business, give me a loan. The bank looks at you like, no way. Instead, if you just go and do your life and you get successful and everything, and then every once in a while, you haven't taken on any credit or anything, and all of a sudden you get a letter from the bank saying, oh, we'd like to give you credit, right? What we resist persists. Everything that we put as separate from us will continue to be separate from us. We will attract everything we judge until we no longer judge everything we attract.